got an interesting question. If I had two Flip 5s, would it make the bass about the same or better than the Charge 4? So first thing to point out is, if you've got a speaker and then you add a second identical speaker, the bass will not go any deeper, but the bass will be louder. So if we are talking two Flip 5s versus a JBL Charge 4, the difference will be, in normal listening, that for the same volume as a single JBL Flip 5, you will reduce your volume steps because it's playing louder. And the thing about the JBL Flip 5, which you may or may not know, in fact you may not even know, that yes, the JBL Charge 4 does have a significantly deeper, more rounded bass than the JBL Flip 5, which has a prominent upper bass. They give it an upper bass kick to make up for lack of deep bass. And so in terms of deep bass, the JBL Charge 4 by far the biggest winner. But the other thing you may or may not know about the JBL Flip 5 is that it has a hard limit on its bass. It will go up to a certain volume and then the bass will not go up anymore, but the mids and the highs will go up, making it sound thinner, more shrill. It's not that the bass is reducing, but there's a very early hard limit. Now, a lot of other speakers, yes, we will still say the bass is reducing at maximum volume, but that's because with each volume step, the bass is still increasing, but increasing by less than the mids and the highs are increasing. So not all of them have a hard limit. It's just interesting because there is a hard limit above which the bass will not go, and it's quite early in the volume steps. Now, first of all, I want to say that if I'm going to play the JBL Charge 4, for me, real world volumes, 73%. And if I want to match that same perceived volume or loudness, that means playing the JBL Flip 5 on its own at 80% volume. But when I add in my second Flip 5, and of course it's going loud, it's not going twice as loud, you may or may not know, approximately you get a 3 dB boost when you double the power. But to double perceived loudness, you normally need another 10 decibels. Now, that's different across the frequency response. So that's just a general guide. That's not dead on, balls on, accurate in every scenario. But you can normally say around a 3 dB gain, which is a bit louder, but it's not double louder. But in this case, it means I can play my Flip 5s at 63%. And there is the difference. Now, first of all, I'm going to give you a listen, just playing normally at 80% the Flip 5 against the JBL Charge 4 playing at 73%, because at those volumes, they're around the same. And then I normalize them. Now, I've seen comments about, well, you're normalizing that and makes them completely different. No, my normalizing is marginal. The real difference is that I'm actually working out, I'm taking the time to work out at what volumes they actually play the same perceived loudness. I'm actually measuring the LUFS at each volume step. But because the volume steps are not smooth enough to get it dead, you know, it's not going up by 1%. You can do with certain software, but it's a bit of a nightmare. But I'm getting it more or less the same volume and doing a little bit of normalizing just to get it balls on accurate. So when you see in my comparisons it says normalized, basically that means if you was doing that in your own room and getting to the same volume, those would be the volume steps. And then there's a tiny bit of it done in post to get it just right. So Flip 5 single versus JBL Charge 4.
Find your way into this wonderland. Cross the maze, the dark, the innocent. Chase the
So clearly, 1 against 1, the Charge 4 does have more impact, it does have more weight, but you could say the Flip 5, thin, brittle, but maybe a bit more clarity, a bit more sparkly. The 1 is no match for the Charge 4, and I'm going to explain why, because I've had to play this at 80%, and I want to show you why I say that is the problem with the JBL Flip 5. It's hard limit.
The problem with the JBL Flip 5 is there's a dramatic roll off in the bass as soon as you get over 60%. So as you got the volume scale, the bass is there, the bass is there, the bass is there. 60%, and it's leveling out. 66, and it's falling away dramatically. By the time you hit 100%, it's a very thin sound. The bass is lost somewhere in space, which means if you're playing a pair of the JBL Flip 5s, 80% becomes 63%, which means you was playing at 80%, you got very little bass left. You're now playing the same volume, but you got a pair around the 60%, you got a decent wallop of bass.
So when I can play this at 63%, clearly you're going to have relatively more bass because you haven't hit that hard limit yet. So it's more in line with the mids and the highs, which is going to sound more bass heavy, which then means 2 against 1, is it a game changer? Let's have a listen.
Single JBL Flip 5 versus a single JBL Charge 4, and even though the Flip 5 has an upper bass boost, it cannot match the bass on the Charge 4. Even the 90 to 95 hertz, let's say upper bass peak, is higher on the Charge 4, and as we hit lower bass, 70 hertz, minus 17, minus 30, 13 decibels down at 70 hertz, and at 60 hertz, an amazing 12 decibels down for the Flip 5. It cannot match JBL Charge 4 for bass. But when we add that second Flip 5, and now for the same loudness, we can play 63% instead of 80%, which means we're going to get more bass. So now that same comparison means we do have more bass in the upper bass for the Flip 5, and the difference is much less in the lower bass. 70 hertz, minus 23 plays, minus 21. 70 hertz, minus 23 dB. We're 2 decibels louder by adding that second Flip 5. We're now starting to creep into having some lower bass on the Flip 5, not because the bass is going deeper, but because we can play at a lower volume step for the same loudness. In the deeper bass, 60 hertz, Charge 4 starts to nudge it again. But the difference is a lot less now just by adding a second Flip 5.
A bit of a game changer in that you could ask yourself that actual question, should I get 2 Flip 5s? Because don't forget, both of these are mono speakers. Should I get 2 Flip 5s or 1 Charge 4? Because checking this morning, I could actually get this for 80 quid. I could get that for 110, 30 quid cheaper. So 160 pounds, and again it's 110, £50 more Now, I mean, you know, that's not an insignificant amount, but it is enough of a difference, small enough a difference for you to be thinking, what should I do? Because mono, now we've got stereo, you've got an upper bass kick on the Flip 5, and so to a large extent, that upper bass kick, when played in a stereo against one, will mask the fact that the Charge 4 is going deeper. Adding, as I said, 2 Flip 5s won't go any deeper than a single Flip 5. The benefit is, obviously, if you're not playing at maximum volumes, and so you're not looking for just to raise the volume you're playing at, and you're just playing at the same volumes as a single one, you're going to be playing lower volume steps. That means a more deep bass, simply because you're at a lower volume step. That is a question you might want to ask yourself, just to say, what are the differences between these speakers? Well, the Flip 5 is obviously smaller. In fact, it looks about half the size. It is half the size. 965 grams, 540 grams. In terms of battery, 7,800 milliamps Charge 4, 4,800 milliamps Flip 5. They're both basic SBC. Thank you, JBL. Both Bluetooth 4.2 still. The difference maybe mostly 30 watts versus 20. Two of them, of course, 40 watts. Playing at maximum volume, I can get 6 hours 45 out of one of these, 4 hours 12 minutes out of a Charge 4. Of course, playing at different volumes. Remember that when you hear these maximum volume battery tests. Talking to maximum volume. Okay, well, let's do it. Let's see how much more headroom we get now. That's another thing you may be asking between two of these and one of those. Does it go much louder? What's the difference now? So my maximum volume test.
Yeah, she needs to know I love her. I wonder if we'll make it through this summer. Just wanna touch like back when we were younger. Yeah. Why don't you love me, love me, love me? Touch me, touch me, touch me no more. Why don't you love me, love me, love me? Touch me, touch me, touch me no more. Some trouble when he's around, my problems seem like double. His stupid eyes put me on ice, so no, no. Don't slow me down, don't wanna do this solo. Why don't you love me, love me, love me? Touch me, touch me, touch me no more. Why don't you love me, love me, love me? Touch me, touch me, touch me no more.
Maximum volume, 2 Flip 5s, by far the loudest in terms of LUFS. 4.5 decibels louder than a single Charge 4. That may or may not surprise you. One thing you can't make up for, even by having 2 Flip 5s, is the lack of lower bass. So the Charge 4 still holds sway. In terms of lower bass, 80 Hz and down, as you can see. Charge 4, much stronger. But the Flip 5, way stronger in upper bass. The Flip 5 anyway is strong 100 to 150 Hz. It's now over 4 decibels louder in the upper bass, which is hiding the difference to a large extent in the lack of lower bass. The other big difference, the Flip 5 being sparkly, has that 4 kHz peak missing on the Charge 4. And a single Flip 5, almost the same volume as the Charge 4 in terms of LUFS. Charge 4 though, still obviously having the bigger bass, having a bigger peak, 94.3, 93.1. And now with a single Flip 5, even in the upper bass, now with a single Flip 5, 100 Hz, slight advantage Charge 4, although up to 150 Hz, the Flip 5 is still a little bit stronger. It does have a strong upper bass, which is making up for clearly deliberately the lack of lower bass, and it does have a 4 kilohertz peak to add some clarity. In these ABs, going to make it sound more sparkly. Charge 4 Flip 5.
Yeah, 2 Flip 5s will go a lot louder than a Charge 4, but you still won't match quite the deeper bass. When I say deeper bass, obviously these are not subwoofers, and we're talking 50, 60 hertz around there. If you're someone who can listen out for that sort of thing, you'll still hear more of it in the Charge 4. Perceived loudness, 2 Flip 5s will go louder, and they will go louder in a significant way. And the upper bass will outkick the JBL Charge 4. And it will outkick it to an extent that you may not hear the difference in the deep bass because of the upper bass kick on 2 Flip 5s. In fact, I was surprised there wasn't that much difference in terms of actual overall loudness between a Flip 5, a single Flip 5, and a JBL Charge 4. By the way, you may be looking at that and thinking, why has he got a pink one? I have to tell you, there's something about these pink versions from JBL. They're cheaper. Why did I buy that? It was cheaper. I'm not silly. I don't mind pink if I'm paying significantly less. And that's why when I said, checking this morning, 80 quid, well, 80 quid was for the pink version of the JBL Flip 5. Is it that nobody picks them up? Or, I don't know, are they for women? Is that a bit sexist? I don't know. Is it that fewer women are picking them up? I don't know who they're designing the pink ones for. And I don't know why consistently the pink ones are cheaper. It is a bit weird, but there you go. A chance to pick up a bargain. You don't mind your mates knowing you've got a pink speaker. But I hope that answered the question. It was a random question on the comments. If I get a second Flip 5, will it go deeper in the bass? No, it won't go deeper in the bass than the Charge 4, but there's a lot more to it than that. And it will certainly go louder. And you may not even hear that there's a lack of deep bass because the upper bass kick is quite significant over and above the JBL Charge 4. Hope you're saying, and my video, and thank you for watching.